All right, the way I want them to, but that's okay. Back on, see what's going on. All right, okay, we're back up. I'm gonna figure this out, guys. I promise. It may take me a little while longer than I thought it would, but we're gonna figure this out. I'm not for sure what's going on. I'm really not. I care, and because I care, it makes me sad that this isn't working like I thought it would. But we are continuing on. We're pressing on. So is life. Sometimes life is difficult, but we press on because we know we need to, and it helps us to get through the tough times. So here we go. And this is not really considered a tough time situation, so there's nothing really to think about. Anyway, back to the Avengers movies. So, um, I know I was finishing up talking about Star Wars, talking about how Star Wars made things a little bit different. Okay, good. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah, finally found a bit rate that worked well for it. Finally got a good setting. I just had to fight with it for a while to figure out what it was. Yay. I like that. I like when it works. Or to quote Hannibal from the A-Team, I love it when a plan comes together. So, but anyway. So, Jingles Rasco, have you seen Avengers Endgame yet? There's my question for you, sir, since you're on with me. I'm just curious to see if you've seen it. I know we were talking the other day and you mentioned something about it, about going to see it this weekend, so I thought I'd ask you if you had. Hello, Louie. Oh, okay, you're gonna go watch it about an hour. Okay. Uh, get ready to go through every emotion that you have. That's all I'm gonna say. Get ready to go through every emotion. No, I'm not, bro. No, not no spoilers here. I haven't dropped a spoiler yet. I don't plan on it. Uh, okay, so Louis enjoyed it, so there we go. But yeah, no spoilers, man. No, I told people at the very beginning of the video that I know that people may come in here and talk about it, but just got to be respectful. I understand it's the first weekend of the movie, and that means a lot of people haven't seen it yet. So I'm not trying to do that. Now Friday, I'm gonna get all up in it. Friday, I'm gonna go all in on that one. So just know that's coming. So I figure that'll give everybody a week, and that way people will be like, okay, and they can get ready to hear it. I'm gonna talk about it. So that's my little schmozzle on that. But anyway, it was a very good movie. I enjoyed it a lot. I'm hoping maybe to get to see it again, possibly this next weekend. Just depends on money and things. 'Cause I got bills to pay. So I had the fortune. A good friend of mine, got some extra tickets. I'll go spoilers. It's a good movie. Yeah. Thank you, as comic maker. I appreciate it. Um, I'm gonna tell you this: if you've seen the movie and you want to talk to people, find people you know that have seen it and talk to them about it. I know what it's like when you can't talk. I had a real good friend who went to go watch it yesterday, and the problem he ran into was the same problem I ran into, which was I watched it Friday night and really couldn't talk to anybody. I had to go to work the next day and couldn't talk to anybody about the movie because either they weren't into the movie or they hadn't seen it yet. So I really couldn't talk to them. And so then it was less like, my buddy calls me. He's just like, bro. And so we just sat down for about 45 minutes yesterday and just went in on it. And he had questions, and I answered questions, and I had questions, and we just, as fans of the stuff, we had questions, and we finally were able to really get those out there. But it was really cool because we were able to kind of discuss it amongst ourselves and not feel like we were spoiling it for anybody else. Like, I don't even go out, like, if I'm out and about somewhere and somebody asks you after the movie, like, I'm very careful even to talk about it out and about. Because if somebody says, like somebody else who saw the movie, they're like, oh, hey, what was up with this? And then somebody's nearby that hadn't seen the movie yet, that I feel like I have the potential to spoil it for, but I'm not trying to spoil it for, believe me. But that's what happens when you're out there. So that's why I want to make sure not to spoil it yet. Like I said, by this time next Friday, it gives everybody a week. If you hadn't seen it by then by that time, I gotta talk about it. I do. I try to, I try to be as respectful as I can, but at some point I gotta be like, okay, I gotta talk. Let's go. I gotta geek out. I gotta fanboy. Cause that's how it goes. So anyway, been talking about a lot of things through the stream as us kind of cutting in and out. So y'all probably didn't hear a lot of it for those of y'all who were on the stream before now. So I'm going to kind of go back since this stream seems to be working. I haven't had any error messages. I think I finally found a setting that will work. Oh my gosh. That's so cool. Anyway, so I was just talking about how when the Marvel movies started with Iron Man, a lot of people didn't know that these movies were going to end up doing as well as they did. First of all, Robert Downey Jr. was a gamble at that time they did that movie. Nobody knew. I mean, the last time he had, been really in movies was back in the late 80s. And then he went through the drug rehab and all that stuff. And so there was a point where people didn't know how him in a movie was going to be. They had no idea. But they gave him a chance. And he actually had a renaissance as an actor as a result of this movie, as a result of Iron Man. I mean, you had Sherlock Holmes after that. You have all these other movies after that he got because he was able to take Iron Man and really do it well. And so Marvel was able to put their chips on him. They bet on him. And it worked. And so then as a result, you started seeing Captain America and Thor and, Thor movie, they introduced Hawkeye, and then Iron Man 2, they introduced Black Widow, and then, you did the Hulk movie with the Captain America movie, and then you had, and I say that Hulk movie because the one with Ang Lee prior, I don't even want to talk about it, because that was not the greatest Hulk movie I'd ever seen. And I'm kind of glad we got another one, even though the whole Edward Norton controversy came up, I'm kind of glad we got a new one, because had we not gotten that one, we wouldn't have ended up getting Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk, who I will say right now, Mark Ruffalo is definitely my favorite Banner by far. So there goes on that. Mark Ruffalo is definitely the king of the Banner in a lot of ways. I think I just like his ability to be, not only serious but also funny. He has a wit about him that's unique, and so I think it's really cool. So I'm glad they found him for that. I know a lot of people were like, well, why didn't they keep Edward Norton? They didn't keep Edward Norton. They should have kept Edward Norton. First of all, by the time you paid everybody else that was on that movie, especially for Avengers, because you think about it, you got Sam Jackson, you got Robert Downey Jr., you got Chris Hemsworth, you got Chris Evans, you've got Scarlett Johansson. You've got all these different people that are super known actors and actresses in this movie. And then Jeremy Renner was still kind of a relative unknown at that point, but he was still coming into a hot role as Hawkeye. And these other movies had already proved to do well. So, of course, it's like, we can't pay Edward Norton plus pay all these other people. And so then they ended up going with what they did. And they got Mark Ruffalo. It seemed like Mark Ruffalo kind of understood what needed to happen as a Hulk. And so he understood, because I know there's a big deal still with the Hulk and why they could no longer do solo Marvel films with the Hulk. And then Universal Studios still owns the movie rights to the character. So they did that last movie, and then they did the new contract, and then because of what Marvel was doing, Universal would not re-sign. So as a result, that's why you haven't seen any more solo Hulk movies. But they were able to go in and do Hulk storylines through Ragnarok and through these other movies, because he really, especially when you get to Thor Ragnarok, man, they really flesh out Bruce's story really nicely. And so I really enjoyed Mark Ruffalo's way he portrayed the Hulk. So, and then you had, like I said, they introduced Black Widow in Iron Man 2, with Whiplash as the main bad. Well, Whiplash is the first main bad guy. You still had I can't think of his name, the guy who was Justin Hammer. You had Justin Hammer kind of playing the secondary bad guy, and so he was in there doing his thing. And then you had Rhodey show up. You had all this stuff going on with Pepper and with Gwyneth Paltrow. Who, by the way, Gwyneth Paltrow in that role as Pepper Potts is one of the most unsung heroes of that whole franchise, because she really is the constant. Even when, you think about Iron Man 3, you think about the fact that, Iron Man 3 is, Tony's kind of gone for a lot of that movie. Tony's not around. And so Pepper's the one running the business. Pepper's doing all this other stuff. Pepper's really keeping Tony down. She really is. So, you can never question the loyalty of a good woman. That's the lesson you learn from Iron Man, is that no matter what, because Pepper definitely keeps him, whether he admits it or not, she really keeps him adjusted. So, and then even you get to Spider-Man, man. By the time you introduce Spider-Man in Civil War, I mean, they had a really good way of introducing characters in other movies. You had Spider-Man in Civil War, you had Black Panther in Civil War. You had all these great characters that were brought in. Wanda, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver introduced. They introduced them at the end of Captain America Winter Soldier, and then they show up during Civil War. Not showing up during Civil War. Age of Ultron. They show up during Age of Ultron. So all of these characters are getting brought in at different times in different movies, and then slowly but surely you start to see them really come into their own. And so you eventually get to the point where you see like Scarlet Witch going from being this girl who's not sure of her powers to eventually becoming one of the most powerful people in the Marvel Universe, to the point where Okoye during Infinity War is like, why was she the one in there the whole time? And so, you get that as well. So, but Marvel has done a really good job of building to this movie. There's a lot of history that they have put into this film. I'm going to go ahead and put the paintbrush down. Trying to get music on. I've had the royalty-free, little jazz royalty-free thing going, but for some reason it keeps cutting off on me. So nothing wants to work for me today. It is what it is. That's the worst that happens. I think it's going to be fine. So anyway, let's go in here and start doing some tightening up on this. Let's start bringing some things to light. So we're going to start back where we started earlier. We'll start back with Cap and work our way around. Anybody got any questions about the other Marvel movies that are not Endgame? That's a little bit easier for me because I know I can talk about that without really spoiling Endgame. Because of course, a lot of the movies, a lot of those other movies, they have their roots, man. This is really it. This is really the last movie of this era. Well, they say this is the last movie of the era. It's really not, because they announced, I believe it's Saturday, that Spider-Man Far From Home will be the official last part of Phase 3. So once that movie is over, basically the next movie will be the beginning of Phase 4 for Marvel. And I know there's some big shoes to fill, some big questions to answer as far as where does, we know Guardians of the Galaxy is going to be another movie they're going to do at some point. But we know that the director is currently working on Suicide Squad. So, once he gets done with that, he'll be working on the Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So that's how that's going to go down. So that'll affect the way Phase 4 is going to go, because they have to wait on him to come out. Because basically when Marvel got him back, they were just like, well, yeah, I can come back and do it, but I got this other movie to do now. And they're just like, okay, no, you take your time, dude. We got this. We're not trying to rush you. Because they understand James Gunn made Marvel a lot of money. And they definitely don't want to mess with whatever formula it takes for him to do his thing. So. All right. I asked this question earlier, and I'll ask it again. Does anybody have a favorite Marvel movie? that they enjoyed, whichever one in the franchise they enjoyed the most. I think my favorite one, for several reasons, is Black Panther. I really enjoyed Black Panther as a whole, just because what they managed to do in that movie, how they managed to make me feel like they really took time with the character. I mean, Ryan Coogler really worked hard with Black Panther as a character to make him relevant and to make him fit, because they introduced him in Civil War, and I think that's the case. It was the best thing about it was they had already introduced him in Civil War, so you already had a sense that's like people are just like, oh, I wonder what's up with this dude, what's going on with this guy, and so that was kind of the way they did it. And so I'm glad they introduced him. I think if you don't introduce him in Civil War, I don't think he gets over there as much, because it kind of was just enough to whet the appetite. Like, who's this guy? What's going on with this guy? I wonder what he does. How does he function? We know he's got this really cool suit that's pretty much bulletproof. We know that much. But we don't know a whole lot else more about him than that. So I think that's really neat. And I'm glad they did it that way, so it would pique people's interest enough for them to go in and be like, okay, so this other movie comes out. So then it's just like, okay, we're going to go watch this movie now with this guy that showed up during Civil War. So, and fought alongside Cap. Definitely wasn't, was it? No, I'm sorry. He fought alongside Team Iron Man because Cap had Bucky. So he was definitely, because he was under the impression that Bucky was the one that killed his father. So he went in thinking that Bucky killed his dad. And so since he thought Bucky killed his dad, he was trying to find him, because he knew he wanted to bring him to justice. He didn't want the powers that be to bring him to justice. He wanted to bring him to justice himself. But then that's when he realized, so even in that movie, he was kind of like, well, wait a minute, I let vengeance rule me too long. I won't let it rule me now. And so it's kind of that, like, he already started a character arc in a movie he wasn't the star of, because he already had he came in, was just like, no, not going to let myself go down this path. And so when he finds out Armin Zola was the one that did it, or Baron Zola was the one that did it, he stopped the bullet. He was going to kill himself. He stopped the bullet. And then he grabbed him and basically said, I'm not going to let my vengeance do this. I'm going to deal with this properly. So I think that was the reason I liked Black Panther as a character, because he grew. He went from being a guy who was, the son of the king, to having to become the king himself. So I always thought that was really interesting to see kind of that story. And then when you get to Black Panther, it takes it one step further, because he goes from being the king to being his own king. That's the whole thing, where the whole idea. And Marvel does a really good job with fathers and mothers, like influence, impact. And that's one of the things they do so well, especially in Black Panther, where, you kind of see his father is there, his father has died, his mother is still alive, and his mother's just like, it's your time to rule, And then later on, whenever, he realizes, well, wait a minute, we killed this kid's dad, and we left him alone and didn't even tell him what was going on. Why did we do that? It's like, well, we couldn't risk bringing him back. We couldn't risk exposing him to our ways. And this is like, well, yeah, but you're not exposing him to our ways. You ended up creating an enemy for us. We have an enemy on our doorsteps because you weren't willing to bring him in. Had you just brought him in and told him what happened, we could have prevented this. But now the whole nation is at fault for this. Now the whole nation's at war. What are we going to do now? And so he's like, well, we were right. No, you weren't. You didn't treat him right. He was a Wakandan. You didn't treat him right. You didn't do what was right by him. And so he ends up having to step out of his father's shadow and becoming his own leader. And so I think it's really cool too. I like the idea of having a hero have to make some hard decisions that on paper don't look like the best decisions, but when it all comes down to it, it's his mistakes to make. And so I think that's something that all of us can grasp on, because we all sometimes have people in our lives that love us. They love us dearly, but they don't allow us to make our own mistakes. And so even if whatever the consequences are for them, you know, we have to deal with those. But they would rather us allow them input in our lives than to actually just allow us to make the mistakes. And so I really appreciate Black Panther for showing me that, you know, in a movie form as a character-driven point. So it's really awesome. So anybody just want to talk in general? Let me know how things are going. Is everything still? Yeah, everything's still going. Everything's still going. I don't see anything shut off or anything, so that's good. I have to watch it because it doesn't give me any signal. If it cuts off for any reason, it doesn't give me a signal and say, hey, we're cutting off now. It just cuts off on its own. So I just like to make sure everything is good to go there. Anybody have any fun stories to talk about for the week? Anybody? I'd like to hear from you guys. You know that. My pastor, I always laugh. Whenever I see the Hulk, I always laugh because my pastor would always tell me I'm like the Hulk because I don't know my own strength. So I'm a big, gentle dude at heart, but I don't know my own strength sometimes. I got to be careful whenever I'm doing stuff. It's like, you don't mean to break things, but sometimes you break things, don't you? Like one time I was changing a light bulb at the church, and like I grabbed the light bulb, I was trying to turn it, and when I grabbed the light bulb, it broke in my hand. And of course, he was just like, man, that's not, you know, you didn't put a whole lot behind that, did you? It's like, no, that's just the thing. I just grabbed it. And of course, he was checking on me, seeing if I was okay and everything. He was just like, okay, all right, Hulk. So he would laugh at me and call me Hulk a lot. So it was, every time I see the Hulk or think about the Hulk, I always think of those conversations we would have. And even just sometimes just dealing with just, you know, trying to be lighter with my hands and trying to be lighter on my feet and everything. So let me go ahead and I am going to lay down. Well, no, not quite yet. No, I don't need to do that just yet. I was going to get the brush out and do something else. Let me connect this. That's what I want to do. Anybody got a favorite movie they see lately? Doesn't have to be a Marvel movie. It could just be any movie. Okay, people have been talking. I just hadn't seen it. Luckily, all my people in town have either seen it or are seeing it today. Okay, sorry, y'all. I've been sitting there asking y'all for stuff for a long time. And did it go? No, it switched. Hey, guys. Let me switch it back. No, switch back. Switch. There we go. I need to figure out how to keep this thing. Wait a minute. Okay, come on now. How do I keep the chat thing up? Okay, sorry guys. I'm trying to keep this chat thing up on here and it won't let me see the chat. Okay, so chat. Okay. All right. I'm going to have to go back and read all of this because I wasn't able to have the chat up the whole time, so now I'm just going through it. I can't see the chat. No, now I can see it. I think he thinks we're being silent. Good deal. All right. Sorry, I'm gonna have to go back and read through the chat now and go through this later because now I see it. Okay, it doesn't keep the chat up in front of me. That's weird. I have a chat button and I can press it, but I have to press it to keep it to pull it back up instead of it staying on, even though I got the chat box there. That is weird to me. How do I keep it on screen? Is there a way to keep it on screen? Now I'm just talking to y'all. Take care, Jingles Rasco, man. I hope you enjoy the movie. You'll have to let me know what you think about it once you see it. That's cool. So, as Comic Maker, and I'm sorry, y'all. I just realized that the chat was on the whole time. I couldn't see it. Anybody know how to keep the chat on the Streamlabs? Because I hate having to press it just to get it to blink back up. And I have a full thing on there, like it's on the deal. I don't know how to set it. Of course, this is the mobile version, so it may be a little bit different if people are using like a desktop. I wonder if they'll introduce Adam in Guardians 3. As Comic Maker, I hope so. When they lost James Gunn for a little while there due to the controversies that were going on around him and things, I know they were working. They had some other things in mind. But since they did introduce Adam in Guardians 2, I'm hoping that we get him in Guardians 3. I hope that they pay that off since Gunn is back. That's okay as Comic Maker. I appreciate it. We'll figure that out. We got this far. I haven't cut off again, so I'm good there. So if this is the worst thing I got to figure out, then we'll go from there, figure out from there. So that'll be another tutorial on how to keep the thing up. So as Comic Maker, I asked this question earlier, and since now I can see the chat and pull it back up. What's your favorite Marvel movie? I'll have to go through. What I'll have to do is once I get this, once I go through and get, I don't know, didn't Thor join? That would be spoiler territory, Louis. So let's not talk about that. That's okay. Like I'm not mad at you for it. I'm just saying that's not something we want to talk about yet. Have all three of us seen the movie here? I saw it Friday night. I actually got off of work and saw it. Who else is on? Well, who else is on? I don't know. It's a race between Guardians 1 and Ragnarok. It's funny. Chris Hemsworth apparently had an interview, and he talked about the fact that the first two Thor movies were not his favorite Thor movies, and so there are some jokes that are in reference to the fact that he obviously didn't like Thor and Thor Dark World. I didn't like Thor Dark World. I finally sat down and watched it. It was just like, this movie is horrible. Oh, your sister saw it without you? No. That's part of it, though. So if all three of us could talk about it, I wait. Oh, okay. Well, if nobody else comes in, that's fine. I just don't want a situation. Is there a way? There's not a way to do a warning, like, spoilers ahead. But, okay, so if it's just the three of us in the chat, then yes, let's have some fun, shall we? So yes, Thor does join the Guardians of the Galaxy, and he coins them the Guardians of the Galaxy, which is funny because there's a comic book that's been out for a while with that name. So a lot of people are like, oh, he would say Asgardian because he's Asgardian. I'm like, no, there's a comic book precedence for there. If it's just the three of us, then just say yes. I think it's just the three of us. If somebody else comes in, we need to advise them there are spoilers in the chat. And then that way we know ahead of time. Spoiler alert ahead. Not the spoils of stuff. Okay, talk to me about what you're confused about. I love this. This is the type of stuff I enjoy. My niece went to watch this movie yesterday, and at some point I owe her a conversation about the movie because I know she's going to have 1,000 questions. Smitter calls Stark. Smitter? Who's Smitter? Did I miss something? I don't know who Smitter is. All right. They have everyone snap back 5 years later, so they have all missed 5 years. So Peter is going to school with his friends, where his friends snap too. I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes. All the people that were at his school were probably had to be snapped. That's the only way it makes sense. So they're gonna resume and say they left off, yeah, because they're gonna consider it a traumatic event. Now, Louis was asking about the Captain America thing. So Captain America went back and took the stones back, because remember what Tilda Swanson said. I can't think of her name from Doctor Strange. I know she's not the Time Lord, because that's Doctor Strange. I mean, that's Doctor Who. But Sorcerer Supreme at the time, she was the Sorcerer Supreme. And so she said all the stones have to come back to the same place. If they don't come back to the same place, then they're going to create alternate realities. So Steve was the one that ended up taking them back, I would assume, so he could have came back. Yeah, it would have to be that way as comic maker. They'd have to go back to school and put the stones in the right place. But when he got done doing it, the last place he had to go was back to his era. Because remember, Peggy Carter was there. Oh, right. Gotcha. He is going to be sad about that. But he'll, like we all, I got a sneaking suspicion. Ask me about Iron Man in about 2 minutes, because I got a theory on that. Okay, but so anyway, so he went back to, because remember they had to, because Loki took the original Tesseract. So when Loki took the original Tesseract, then they had to go back even further in time to go get it. So they went back to World War II, basically. So when he went back, he just stayed. He just stayed there. And as he said, Tony told him to get a life, and he got one. So he ended up having that final dance with Sharon Carter, which I cried. I'll be honest with you. I cried when I saw that, because I was like, Steve finally got the last dance that he had been wanting ever since Captain America and never got. He'd given up so much for the world, for this team, for everybody. And then he just wanted to dance with his girl and spend a life with her. And it was funny when Sam said, do you want to tell us about her? He's like, no, I don't. Because it was nobody else's business. And so the first time, Cap kind of was a little bit selfish, and he decided to choose love. And so he decided to go back and spend a good life with the lady he loved. And then once he lost her, once she died, because she still passed away, because remember the way they explained the time deal is that as long as the stones stay where they're supposed to be, anything you do in the past is not going to affect your future, because your future is no longer the same timeline. You've created a parallel world out of this. So when Captain America got to use Thor's hammer, I was like, yeah. When Captain America picked up Mjolnir, I screamed. I stood on my feet. I was like, oh my gosh, he's gonna do it. He's gonna get the, oh yeah. Because like, Thanos was about to kill Thor, man. He had Stormbreaker. He was just like, right, I need to make sure to go for the head. And it's like, oh, so the out of time Thanos uses the line from Thor that Thor was supposed to go for the head when the older version of him told him to save. Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. But yeah, when Cap got a hold of that hammer, man, I lost it. I had myself a, and then I think my other favorite moment was, well, here's the thing. In the comics, Falcon and Bucky have both been Captain America. So is it possible that he may say, Bucky, you take it? It could. Is it possible he may take it and keep it? I don't know. I know they're going to be doing they're doing a show on the Disney streaming service, and it's going to be called, right now, it's called Falcon and Winter Soldier. Whether they keep that, and I think they couldn't say Captain America and Winter Soldier, because that might have spoiled some stuff. So we don't know if maybe he just decided not to do that. We'll see. We'll see. I think it'd be cool if just for one brief moment we got the Cap Falcon moment where he comes flying up with the shield, everything, landing at a new base or whatever. I think it's gonna be cool. Uh, or he could just say, I don't feel like I'm ready for this, and then Bucky does it for a little while, and then by the time we get, which it's gonna be a while before we see another Avengers level movie. Cause they got so many other smaller movies on tap. Of course, I would love to see how they do Thor with the Guardians of the Galaxy. I think they set up some stuff for Guardians of the Galaxy as well, because you got Peter looking for the displaced version of Gamora. So that's going to be interesting, especially since this was Gamora pre her joining the Guardians. So she has no real affiliation with the Guardians herself other than Nebula. So she's not the Gamora that fell in love with him. It's a different Gamora from a different time. So hence that parallel timelines, the parallel timelines that the Sorcerer Supreme was talking about. So it ought to be interesting to see how that all goes. So did Tony like the movie as comic maker? Did Tony enjoy the Endgame? Is Tony on here? Can Tony tell us if Tony enjoyed it? I was talking to Tony. Talking to Tony as though he's in the third person. I like Captain Marvel's entrance in near the end, but to be honest, my favorite moment was still when Doctor Strange brought everybody in. Like, you hear Falcon come over the radio, and he's like, "Hey, Cap, can you hear me?" And he's like, "Falcon?" He goes, "To your left." And that's a line. I didn't know if Tony was on too. Did Tony like the movie? Did Tony enjoy it? I saw a thing where it's like he was saying it was lurking. He liked the movie a lot. That's cool. That's cool. But I think when Doctor Strange opened up that portal, you saw everybody stepping through it. You had the moment where Spider-Man kind of comes in and he's all like steps up, just like bam, and then he starts talking to Tony. To your left, Will. Yes. Yeah. Because that was a callback straight from Winter Soldier. Whenever they were running around in Winter Soldier and Falcon kept outrunning him. And so, yeah, but that was just brilliant. And then you had all of them fly in. You had which I'm still trying to figure out how Okoye went back through the portal to come back with Black Panther and them. Because, like, Black Panther, Shuri, and the whole army came through. It's like, so did Doctor Strange get her in Wakanda? And then I guess so. I guess that's probably what happened. Like, he went to Wakanda, picked her up, and everybody else that was left, and brought them all from Wakanda. Because you saw, like, the airships and everything. Like, Doctor Strange has the greatest, like, teleportation service ever. Like, that should be a thing he does. He just all of a sudden just like, do we need an army move somewhere? Yep, where's Doctor Strange? Doctor Strange just comes and said, okay, go through the portals, guys, let's move. He's like the greatest military tactician ever. We're gonna locate these people here, here, and here. How are we gonna do it? We're just gonna teleport them in. But yeah, that scene was epic. And then when Cap says Avengers assemble, I was like, it's finally happened. It's finally happened. Because I don't think he ever said that during the course of any of the other movies. Like, I don't think he officially said Avengers Assemble. And, for so long, of course, they were kind of fragmented. Of course, Tony comes back and he's jaded. And rightfully so. Like, Tony was absolutely right when he says, you said if we lost, we'd lose together too. But where were you? Where were you when we needed you? You weren't there. And then we lost. And you weren't there. And then you just left again. It's crazy. Just cut off Thanos' arm and turn back time. Yeah, well, you got to remember, Strange saw Strange. Okay, think about it like this: Doctor Strange saw the same movie we saw 14,900,000 something times, and the only way that they were going to win was the way he saw that he was in. That was it. Got to aim for the head. I think another one of my favorite lines was when Thanos says, "I am inevitable." And he goes to do the snap, and he goes to snap, and nothing happens. And then you look over at Tony, and he's got the Infinity, his version of the Infinity Gauntlet on his suit. And he says, "I am Iron Man." I'm just like, yes! Tony got to be the hero, man. Tony got to be the real hero once and for all. Dude, everything they went through, Tony, it started with Tony and it ended with Tony, man. It really did. It was really awesome. And they gave Robert Downey Jr. the biggest going away party ever. And I told y'all to ask it, Thor Lebowski. I love that Tony gave him the nickname. He's just like, he walks in, they're having a meeting, he's talking to him about the ether and everything, and he's like, "Okay, look, Lebowski, you need to sit down." Yes, Tony always gives everybody nicknames, so I thought that was really cool. But yeah, my theory on Tony, I know they said Robert Downey Jr. was done with the role of Iron Man as an active character. But I would love to see, like, years later, his daughter help out a friend of hers maybe that becomes Ironheart, and then when they create her AI, end up finding out, yes, the dude from the little boy that Tony helped out in that town was the one that was in the funeral scene. That was his character. So yeah, I thought that was really cool that he was in there. I didn't know who it was at first, and then I started looking up the role. It was like, and it gave the name, and I was like, wait a minute, that's the kid from Iron Man 3. And so, of course, Fury made it back. I kind of wish Fury had made it back and was standing next to Carol. I kind of wish he put his hand on Carol's shoulder, and she turns around, and he says, "Sorry, I'm late," or something like that. Because, whenever she got to Earth, she was like, "Where is Fury?" No, actually, not his partner. Cassie Lang in the comics becomes a character named Stature, and she actually becomes a member of a team called the Young Avengers. And so they're never really like partners per se. As a matter of fact, when it initially happens, her mother is really upset because, of course, her mother doesn't want to see her going out there and trying to be a superhero like him. And so I think it'll be interesting, especially with her being like 16 years old now. That sets up for a possible Young Avengers movie. And in the era of movies we're currently in, I think that movie would work well because you need to have some young heroes to step up for future movies. So, well, I don't remember the ant being, because again, Stature primarily grows really big. She doesn't really do the shrink. She can shrink, but she doesn't really shrink a whole lot. She tends to just grow really big. So that'll be interesting to see how that works out. I love kind of how they tied up a bunch of the stuff. I really do. I like the funeral. I love the oh my gosh, I cried again when Happy is talking to the little girl, and he says, "Are you hungry? What do you want to eat?" She goes, "I like a cheeseburger." And he kind of stops up for a second. He goes, "Your dad really loves cheeseburgers." She goes, "Uh-huh. I'm going to get you all the cheeseburgers you want." Just because that's such an uncle thing to say. I'll make sure you never have to worry about cheeseburgers. I got you. It's so sweet. That little girl, I don't know who that little girl was, man. She was a cutie. and she sees her dad working down in the lab and says what he says. Well, but I'm not going to say that on here. Uh, the Tony's hammering in the end. Yeah, that signs off a couple of things. One, it signs off the fact that um, it ends where it started. Because you remember, like I said earlier, the first big movie that they ever did was Iron Man. And so, you have Tony Stark building the armor and all this stuff. And so that's an interesting thing in itself. It signals that. The second thing, it signaled that this was it was the final, it was basically 3 rings for finality. It was over. That this era of, and then also it has to do with the phase 3 because it's the 3rd phase of the Marvel movies. So that's why they did the clanging when they did. I thought that was really neat how they did it. So I'm gonna get back in here and work on Black Widow symbol for a little bit. Speaking of Black Widow, okay, so everybody in here is still only people that saw the movie. Okay, just want to make sure. Man, I kind of hate that they had her die, especially when you consider the fact that she's still getting a solo movie sometime in the next few years. Because now that means that there will not be Scarlet, that she will not be a part of the A-Force movie that I'm sure they're going to do at some point. If you remember the scene where Captain Marvel gets the gauntlet, and Peter says, "I don't know how you're going to get it over there." And then all the women come up and they're all like, yeah, she's got help. Don't worry about it. We got her. And so they all come up and like Scarlet Witch. And I'm sorry, that scene needed Black Widow in it. They really did. I missed her not being there. I mean, I understand it was part of the greater sacrifice that she needed to make for the Soul Stone. But it just sucked that scene came afterwards and she wasn't in it at all. Well, because he said near the end of the movie that he tried to bring her back when he snapped the first time, and it didn't work. And then the other thing was too is that snap, if you'll remember, he was in a cast at the end of that movie. Like the Hulk doesn't usually take that much damage ever, and the fact that his arm was not only in a cast but in a sling means not only did he burn his arm, it probably broke his bones, which again doesn't normally happen to the Hulk. So he may not have survived doing it a second time. And that's the thing, the young Thanos had never done the finger snap. That the out of time, that displaced Thanos never did the snap. So of course he could do it because he had never done it. The other one that did do the snap was already dead because Thor cut his head off. Yeah, he probably would have died. And of course, at that point, it kind of defeats the whole purpose because the reason he would want to have her back is because he loved her. But, he knew he couldn't do it a second time directly. And, even when he says, that was, this things are mostly made out of gamma radiation. So I was kind of born for this. I was kind of made for this. And I just kind of laughed. I was like, yeah, you were, weren't you, buddy? You definitely weren't made for it. You definitely weren't the normal out of the group. But anyway, so yeah, that I think that's the main reason why you don't have him do the snap again. And plus that makes it really convenient if you say, okay, well the Hulk could have snapped multiple times and survived it, because then you basically make him more powerful than Thanos. Because Thanos was basically like, when I used him, it almost killed me the first time. Now he did the second power surge and still survived, but he wasn't strong enough to even fight the others. Yeah, the Stan Lee cameo was great. Of course, every time I see a Stan Lee cameo, I cry a little bit because I miss him, because eventually they're not going to be able to do the cameos anymore. So that'll be the moment when it's just real for me at that point. I mean, as long as he's doing cameos, it still feels like it's going to be real, but, it's just different. Yeah. Like I said, I think I can see him being AI later. I think I can see him coming in as some AI for a future Iron person. to step into the mantle. Like I said, I can see them doing Ironheart or something like that. Um, Somebody said, well, what about the little girl from Captain Marvel? She could end up being like Riri or something. It's like, no, she's already got a place destined for her because she should be Photon. She should end up being the superhero that's basically followed after Carol's footsteps. Because you got to think, when they finger snapped everybody, it was 5 years for her too. So she's probably a teenager by now. So they'll introduce the teenage version of her in the next Captain Marvel movie, and I'm sure she may have developed some powers or something. Because Photon's abilities, Monica Rambeau is a character who also carried the mantle of Miss Marvel, and because she had powers very similar to Carol's. So, a little history lesson there for you guys. But anyway, I'm hoping that they pay that off somehow and have her end up being the new Miss Marvel. Then maybe when Carol is, then maybe that'll be the part of the second movie that Carol is, while Carol's in space, she can't always be there. But maybe Monica will be like her agent that will be on Earth to stay on Earth, basically. Don't know how well that idea will work, but Amanda, don't bring Steve into this. As Comic Maker said, maybe only big, thick guys, thick boys can handle a gauntlet. Well, if that's the case, then Thor would have had it. Because Thor definitely got thick. Thor got thick. Different kind of thick, I think, but thick nonetheless. He's a big boy now. I have a friend who always says that I don't know if there's anything they could do to take away the pretty. All right, that's Comic Maker. Thank you so much. Y'all take care. Enjoy your dinner. I need to probably do that sometime soon myself. We'll finish this though first. Okay. Take care, Tony. Y'all enjoy your dinner. And thank y'all for hanging out on the chat. Now that I got everything fixed and got the proper stuff, we can do this again soon. Bye, guys. Okay, let's tighten this stuff up here. Get this band on there for her. Sorry about that. Okay. Almost done there. I'm in there and boom. All right, Hawkeye's got to fill in the stuff for. I went ahead and put Hawkeye and dressed him in his Ronin outfit. So, because that's something that you see in the trailers. Just about done. Okay. All right. That's cool. Go do your thing. I definitely don't want to take you away from your responsibilities. Laundry support and stuff. I got to go do that tomorrow myself, so I understand. And all right, put the head up there, And then we'll go ahead and do the neck. All right. Tighten up the back mask there. And go ahead and do the hoodie. Go ahead and get some color differential in here from the there. I think we're just about done. Let me straighten that up a little bit so you guys can see it a little bit better. There's my music that I played all back 20 minutes ago. See how long it stays on. Little jazzy bongo drums going. And of course I got ads, so
you should start using this.
It's not a way to really skip them unless I go through and skip them manually. So skipping the ad. The only bad thing about playing a playlist of through YouTube, that is a for the purposes of non-copyright music. All right, there we go, guys. Wow, that's almost an hour. We tighten up some things here. Oh, before I do that, I need to do the eyes for Natasha. I got her basically looking all zombie-eyed over here. Can't do that. So there we go. That's the main 6 for the Avengers. And these are the men and women. In this case, I say that knowing that, there are a lot more women involved in the whole Avengers thing, but this is the men and women that started it all really for us in the cinematic universe. They were the 6. Of course, Nick Fury brought them together, but there's the 6 that paved the way for this Endgame. for us. So this, of course, is Thor. That's Black Widow, Captain America, Hawkeye, in this case, dressed in his Ronin outfit, Incredible Hulk or Professor Hulk, and then Iron Man. So, and it started with him. So, and it ended with him. So, anyway, guys, thank you so much for rocking with me on this live stream today. Thank you for being patient with me while I got everything taken care of. And above all else, guys, be blessed, be a blessing to somebody. Till next video, guys, you guys take care.